All right, so another week in the books. This was a heavier week for me, so some singles. So I'm going to show you a few of those. During the course of the week, was not happy with how these goes. Does that sound like a broken record? Because I feel like a broken record. But towards the end of the week, I actually feel pretty good about how things went. Watching things over again and kind of putting the whole week into perspective. It was a pretty heavy week for me overall, and also made some changes, and I'm making some changes to hopefully better myself for the USAPL Northeast Regionals, which will be my next meet, which is roughly after this week, 4 weeks from now. So a couple interesting things about this week, as I said. Number one, on deadlifts, this particular first day, I noticed my hips were shooting up, and I think I was really trying to get lower and get tighter, but what happened is my hips were dropping too low to a point where it wasn't really in an ideal pulling position. So you'll see at the end of this week, I actually kind of adjusted things a little bit, and I think I get my hips in a higher starting position, which makes me initiate the pull in a better, stronger spot overall. Now, one of the things that I will say about this week also is these 3 times per week squatting movements have just really been adding up to me, and my fatigue has been getting super, super high. This particular week, what I did is I ditched the bands on day 1. I'm also ditching the halfway pause on the way down on day 2. And going forward, I'm going to knock it down to 2 squatting movements per week, just given the way that I train and how things are right now and just what I found to be most beneficial for myself. I think 3 times per week at this point with the volume and intensity is just going to be a little bit too much, especially considering I have some travel and some other stuff coming up. I think it's just probably the smartest move out there. So I say that in anticipation of what you're going to see very shortly, which are my squat singles for the week. So this was supposed to be pause on the halfway down. Just did regular work, and it was still fairly heavy. I mean, 457 pounds is a lot for this little guy. But this led into my day 3 training. So typically how things have been going, you've been following these. I've been squatting literally 3 times within a 4-day stretch. So squat the first 2 days of the week, have 1 day off, and then my heavy squatting day, which you're seeing right here, these singles, which I felt moved awful. And if you can read my lips at the top of this, I'm actually like, oh my God, that feels awful. And it did feel awful. But again, taking a look at the whole week in context, I think I was kind of expecting too much of myself. I mean, it is roughly probably about 90 to 92.5% of my 1 rep max. It's not going to move super smooth. And again, being the 3rd squatting movement of the week with the heavy deadlifts earlier in the week, it's just really unrealistic to expect it to move better. So again, surprisingly, I feel really good about this week, all things considered. You'll probably notice throughout the course of this week too, I'm using my blue Inzer belt. I'm also breaking out things like my blue gangster wraps, some things I haven't worn in a long time. That's not to say they aren't serviceable and they aren't good. I just have other brands that I prefer. So I really like my Pioneer belts, and you can actually see all the belts in the background that I own right now. I also really like my A7 wrist wraps. And as far as knee sleeves go, I like my Stoic knee sleeves. So I've been wearing my SBDs more because in this Northeast Regionals, you have to have all IPF spec'd and approved gear. So I just want to make sure that I get a couple of weeks training in it because it's been a while. And I will do a video on just gear in general and if it really makes a difference or not. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully you guys all have a good week and weekend now that it's Friday. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.